We are so excited that you are joining us for this Retinol 101 Masterclass. I'm Jeannine. If I have not met any of you before, I am the head of product education, and I'm your host, as well as my good friend Sue. Sue is our moderator extraordinaire. As you know, she is running everything behind the scenes. She's going to be monitoring your chat. She's also going to be capturing some key questions. So whether you are watching live, you're watching this replay on YouTube, feel free to ask questions related to retinol in the chat or comments. And post-show, once this is on YouTube, if we don't get to your questions, I'll be sure to go over and address as many as I can. So, Sue, I know that you're going to come back in just a little while. We're going to definitely have a Q&A session at the end of the class, and I'm going to save a good amount of time. So today, our topic is retinol, the superhero of anti-aging ingredients. Now, if you're tuning in, it's very likely that you know the benefits of retinol. But today, because this is a masterclass, I want to discuss the fine print, right? So I have a question for all of you. Tell me in the chat, have you ever used retinol? Are you actively using retinol? Also, is there anyone out there that you've heard about it and you're like, I'm a little afraid, to actually use the retinol? Okay, I'm seeing yes, no, yes, about once a week. Yes, using it every day. My goodness. Using bakuchiol, we'll talk about that today as well. Okay, so we've got a healthy balance of some yeses, some no's, some never tried it, a little afraid, but that's okay because listen, it is very common that retinol is a product that people are scared to use sometimes for various reasons. Maybe it's because they've had a bad experience. If you've had a bad experience with retinol, maybe you've also heard other people talk about their experiences, whether it's the skin peeling, flaking, your skin turns red. By the way, those are all very normal side effects of retinol, by the way. Maybe your skin is super sensitive to the touch, or maybe you even have experienced something that looks like a rash. By the way, retinol rash is a very real thing. And that is caused by going too high in percentage and going way too fast. Now, I have actually experienced it several times, and I can tell you it is not fun, but don't worry because it's always something that you can reverse and you can actually fix. Retinol, and I'll tell you, especially while we're talking about, skin being oversensitized, a lot of people sometimes make a common misconception that retinol is a moisturizer, and it is not. It is actually a treatment, and it is typically not something that should be used daily if you are using higher percentages. But we're going to talk more about that, so don't worry. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of people talking about all of the products that they're using, so that's really exciting. Most important, I really want to remove the scare out of the equation. So if you've joined me for any of my skincare classes before, you know that I am very big on knowledge is power, right? When you know about important key ingredients, who they're good for, how to use them, it's really going to help you make the decision if that product is going to be right for you or not. Now, today, and we're going to show a little slide here, we're going to talk all things retinol. So here's our agenda. We're going to talk about the retinol, what it is, over the counter versus prescription. You know me, I love to have a little science moment. We're actually going to also look at some of the retinol products that we have here at Avon. And then we're actually going to determine which retinol is right for you. I have some scenarios that should help you if you've never tried. So hopefully you'll be able to determine a product today, as well as a couple of products that would be great to use with that. And then, like I said, we're going to end this session today, so I hope you'll stick with us by addressing commonly asked questions. And Sue is also, as I mentioned, going to be grabbing your questions, and I will address as many of those as I can as well. So let's start with about retinol. So I love my science moments. Retinol belongs to a class of ingredients known as retinoids. Retinoids are a derivative of vitamin A. How many of you have ever heard of vitamin A? I bet you have. That is a very common ingredient that is found in skincare products because of its ability to really improve the appearance of skin. So that's a really important ingredient. Now, I want to tell you what retinol does not do, because this is another common misconception. Retinol is not an alpha hydroxy acid, AHA, right? So it does not remove those topical dead skin cells like other anti-aging and resurfacing products. The reason I want to point that out is because I don't want you to think that retinol actually takes the place of those products and vice versa. They're both really equally important. Now let's talk about what retinol does. Okay, here's the science piece of it. So when you're applying the retinol, if you can imagine, picture small molecules. So when you apply it, the small molecules, they actually go past the top layer of skin, which is called the epidermis, and they dive down into the second layer, the middle layer, which is called the dermis. So they're, alpha hydroxy acids, they're taking care of everything on top, and retinol is like, I got to get in and I've got to go to work. So it goes down to the middle layer. And once there, those molecules, they take action. They're neutralizing free radicals. Now, without going into, a whole nother science lesson, free radicals, they're not good, right? Their goal is to destroy healthy skin cells. And that is a big no-no in my category, right? So retinol, the reason it's so important is because it stops some of that destruction. It helps neutralize. But at the same time, it's also helping to stimulate, to boost the production of collagen and elastin. Now, you know that collagen and elastin, that is very important, especially as our skin begins to mature. So that retinol, it also does so many things. Here's the reason it's considered a superhero ingredient. So number one, it goes to war, right? And it's kind of stopping and neutralizing those bad free radicals. But at the same time, when it's stimulating the collagen and elastin, it's actually leading to all of those beautiful results that so many people want, whether that is the plumping effect that can reduce the appearance of fine lines or wrinkles. It also can help unclog pores. Another way to think about this is if you have what you feel, and by the way, everybody feels like this, everybody feels like they have enlarged pores. That is something that can, it can reduce the appearance of those because it's actually cleaning them out, right? It smooths those fine lines and wrinkles. It resurfaces your skin's texture for a brighter, smoother look. All things, by the way, that, as our skin matures, we typically really want to address. Another thing that retinol does is it also addresses to help blemishes. It can help fade blemish marks and discoloration in the process. So it does a lot of things. I think we can all agree, right? Like retinol, superhero. Now, I want to be clear, all of the things I just talked about, that is general information about retinol. So that was kind of like our little science lesson about what retinol does. And an example of that is when I mentioned about the blemishes. For example, if you have acne or breakouts, you may need a prescription, right? So always, always talk to your dermatologist if you have any skin concerns. All right, moving along. So we've talked about the science. Let's now talk about over-the-counter versus prescription. So you've probably heard, I know you see that in drugstores here at Avon, we have retinol products. You've probably also heard that there are prescription strengths as well. So over-the-counter is called retinol. Prescriptions are actually called retinoic acid. Now, you don't really need to know that, but I always just like to give, the fine print, remember. So let's start with over-the-counter. So over-the-counter, the formulations, they're obviously going to be lighter, right, than a prescription, but they can be so incredibly effective. They do sometimes have retinoids, but typically that is labeled as a retinoid complex. And just so you know, a complex, it typically means there's a minute amount in there. So it's not going to be the same strength as something that is in a prescription. Most over-the-counter retinols don't have more than than 1%. There are a couple of competitors that do have a higher percentage of retinol. But one thing that I've noticed is there are no buffers in those in that formulation. And what that means is there isn't anything else in that formula to really help soften or to offset potential side effects per gene. We'll talk about that in just a couple of moments. Now, our 1%. Love this product. Tell me in the chat if you've tried this. Our 1%, it actually does have some light buffers, and we're going to talk about that. But the great news is that you absolutely can still see visible results with this retinol. Really great. Okay, very quickly, let's talk about prescription. So prescription, it's much stronger, clearly, and it's likely also to come with potential side effects. Tell me in the chat, just because I'm curious, have any of you ever tried a prescription retinol? It may be called tretinoin, Avita, Differin, anything that you would get from your dermatologist. So obviously it's much stronger. Purging, some of those side effects can be peeling, flaking. It can even make you break out. And the reason is because that retinol, remember, it goes down to that middle layer and it is stopping the bad stuff, but at the same time, it's got to get it all out. So if you think about it, it's raising everything to the surface. So if you're having that breakout, it may be very frustrating, but if you stick with it, the results are worth it. Okay. With the prescription also, I talked about over the counter, a lot of them have those buffers to really lessen the effect a little bit. But with the prescription, there would not typically be any type of a buffer or a compound to help replenish the moisture. And that's because it is truly there to do a job, right? So let me talk about percentages. So in prescription, the range in retinols, retinoids, is typically 0.025 to 0.1. Now, that may sound a little counterintuitive because those are smaller percentages, but the formulations are so much stronger. Their main purpose typically when you are using a prescription retinol is fine lines, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, and most certainly people that are looking to really address the texture of their face, as well as typically severe grade, breakouts, blemishes, even acne. Okay. Let me know if you have any questions. Again, Sue is going to be capturing all of the questions as we go through. And I want to talk a little bit about retinol percentages. So I just talked about the difference between over the counter as well as prescription, but this will be important as we begin to talk about the retinol products that we have here at Avon. So retinol percentages, I like to think of it as lifting weights, right? You always want to start smaller and you want to work your way up. Have you ever gone into the gym, you haven't been there in a while, and you're like, look, I'm going to go hardcore. I'm going to go right for the 25-pound. I couldn't even probably lift that, but I'm going to go right for the heavy weights, or I'm going to go work out hard. And then you literally almost take yourself out the next day, right? So it's one of those things that you need in the same kind of concept. You need to actually start slower. It does not happen overnight. The same thing with retinol, but with continued use, continued patience, you can absolutely work your way up in numbers just like you can with weights. And by the way, that is whether it is prescription or over the counter. You're typically going to hear me say that I recommend the low and the slow approach. And what I mean by low is I would recommend starting, especially if you've never used a retinol, start with a lower percentage and go slow, meaning start once a week and then build your way up. So remember, I talked earlier at the beginning of the class about, having things like a retinol rash, and truly that's because I went really hard, I went really high, and I actually started going way too much. So there are very active ways that you can avoid that. So I don't want you to be scared that if you start with the way we're talking about low and slow, you will be fine. Okay, so let's talk about a few of our retinol products at Avon. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is kind of our hero of retinol at this point. This is the new clinical line eraser, advanced 1% retinol serum. We do love giving our products long names, don't we? So 1% retinol is easy enough to say that. So This really, when we came onto the market with this a couple of years ago, this showed everyone that we were a serious contender with anti-aging solutions. 1% retinol, it is very high for over the counter, as I just talked about, but it has clinical results, and the clinical results are absolutely phenomenal. 100%. You heard me right. 100% of people that tried the product, they showed clinical signs of improvement in their fine lines and wrinkles in 1 week. What? That's amazing. I'm seeing in the comments, Teresa saying it helped, kind of your squint lines. Franca is saying it's a great product. If you've ever tried 1%, drop that in the chat. I want to hear all about your experiences. And this product is really all about targeting fine lines, wrinkles, visibly smoothing, visibly brightening, helping fade those dark spots and marks, anything that you may have had from maybe some light breakouts or blemishes. Now, in terms of how to use this, and you can see I've got a silent video there where we're just showing the product a little bit. You definitely want to start small. You want to use no more than a pea-sized amount on one night. You use it, and then you're going to wait a few days, evaluate your skin. If your skin is okay and you don't experience any kind of a reaction, you can use it again. However, if you use it on that first night and within the next day or two, you notice that your skin is red or it's flaky and you truly don't want to go through what is called kind of the purge, then you can always try mixing that retinol with a moisturizer. And we're going to talk about some of those regimens more deeply in just a few moments. With this particular retinol, the goal would be, if you can, to work your way up to 3 times a week, or if your skin can tolerate it, every other day. Now, I keep saying this, and it's because it just cannot be said enough that 3 times a week is absolutely not going to be immediate. We're going to talk about retinol users. Again, I'm going to help you determine which one is right for you kind of in our next segment. And this is just another PSA, very important call out for this product and the majority of all retinols in general. And that is, you only want to use this product for evening use only. You want to incorporate this into your evening, your nighttime skincare routine. And the reason is because retinol makes your skin more sensitive to sunlight. Now, what does that mean? Kind of read between the lines. It means it's more likely to make you could burn, you could get, all of the side effects of when you're out in the sun. And by the way, even if you're using like a light sunscreen, and that's obviously the opposite of what we want to do with anti-aging. So it's very, very important. Use this product in the evening, pea-sized amount, and then in the next morning, what you're always going to do is make sure that you use that SPF. Of course, I want you to use SPF on a daily basis in your morning routine, but I would really recommend using SPF 50. We have some great options at Avon of SPF products, and some of them are very, very light. Solaire Face and Body is a great example, and that is so easy to fold right into your routine. Okay, let's take a look at a couple of our other products. And I'm seeing a couple of questions. So I know that Sue is going to again be, she's going to be capturing some of those key questions, and we'll address those at the end. Okay, so a couple of our other retinol options that I just wanted to quickly highlight. Number one, this is a beautiful product that we've had for quite a while, Esonox, a new clinical line eraser. This has clinical results as well. It is shown to help reduce the look of fine lines, wrinkles. It does have less actives in it, so it does not have the 1% retinol, but it still has that wrinkle fighting action. The next one, this is brand new, Dominus Retinol Youth Rejuvenating Serum. Now, this is currently only available in the US, but this retinol has a little bit less than the clinical line eraser treatment. It actually has 0.05, but this product also has vitamin C, it has niacinamide. So I think this is a really beautiful product that is actually kind of doing a little bit of work for retinol, but it's also going to help reduce the appearance of dark spots, fine lines, signs of aging. So Brand new product available online, so check that out if you have not already. And then this is not retinol, but I want to talk about this class of products. So PharmRx, that's a collection that we offer at Avon, bakuchiol products. So you can see there we have a serum, we have a cream, we have an eye cream, and bakuchiol, we'll talk about this in just a few moments, but that is a plant-based alternative to retinol, and this is a phenomenal option if you have sensitive skin. The other thing about this brand, with bakuchiol is you can use this in the morning because with this plant-based alternative to retinol, there is not actually any photosensitivity. So if you're looking at the retinol products and kind of those percentages, you would look with starting, at least at Avon, the 1% would be the strongest in formulation. Next would be your clinical line eraser. Next would be your Dominus. And then, of course, you have your PharmRx bakuchiol products. And again, they kind of stand, by themselves alone. Okay. Okay, now let's talk about identifying the right retinol product for you, as well as some of those perfect pairings. How many of you remember this from the last masterclass? This is just a general skincare routine from our last masterclass, the Ultimate Skincare Regimen, and you can see all of the steps, cleansing, treating, moisturizing, absolutely everything, all the way taking care of your entire body. So the reason I'm showing that is because that's going to be important. I'm going to show this in regimen format as we move through and talk about our users. And I'm really glad to see that quite a few of you are saying, yes, you use this, and I'm really happy to hear that. So number one, beginner. So the beginner is the person that has never used a retinol of any type. So I saw a few of you in the comments that you're like, I've never tried retinol for whatever reason. Maybe you just never wanted to try it, or maybe you were a little afraid to try it. So you would be considered a beginner. By the way, it's always good to be a beginner. We always like to start at the beginning, right? And then work our way up. Or you may be considered a beginner if you're an individual that has not used retinol in many, many years. So for instance, if you tried it in your 20s and you're now in your 30s or 40s, I would probably recommend starting back at the beginner step. It's very important as a beginner to start out very gentle. I want you to do a staggered approach. I do not recommend starting with 1% retinol. I promise you can get there. I'm going to teach you how, but it's very important as a beginner to start with low and slow. So let's take a look at the regimen that I've put together for our beginners. All right, so first of all, obviously, I wanted to I'm sandwiching the retinol in the routine. Your entire routine is still very important. You can see at the bottom of the slide, I'm saying plus steps 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So moisturizing your face, your eyes, your lips, your body, that's all still important. But I wanted to kind of build up to the retinol. So obviously, because this is going to be in the evening, you're going to cleanse your face. If you're wearing makeup, if you've been out wearing sunscreen, you probably remember I'm a big advocate of double cleansing. You don't have to, but I still wanted to give a couple of options. So you would, if you're double cleansing, start with some kind of a double cleansing agent, a cleansing balm, use whatever cleanser is, of your choosing. I personally love PharmRx. I think that this cleansing gel is so gentle. I think it's great for all skin types. I also am a big fan of the fact that it is a reusable bottle. I just love that, that sustainability of, purchasing, kind of that refill and then just having the same vessel for my cleanser. So where I would start if I were a beginner is I would start with a new clinical line eraser, or I would start with the bakuchiol. Now, the reason I put the tone step in is because, again, depending on how long it's been, I'm just trying, as you can see, to put some buffers. So you've cleansed your face and our micellar water, it's always great to do a cleanup if you need to, but it also is going to infuse some very light hydration into your skin. It also is really great because having your skin damp after cleansing when you're applying your skincare, your treatments, then they are going to be absorbed better. So that's why I included that. And for this one, I would make sure that you either start with your clinical line eraser, or you can start with the bakuchiol. If you start with bakuchiol, I would recommend using the bakuchiol and then moving up to clinical line eraser, and then you could graduate to your 1%. A very common question is, when do I move up, right? So my recommendation, I always like to keep it very straightforward: finish the bottle. And then you can try and move up if you're not experiencing any issues. So if you're going to start with bakuchiol, finish the bottle, and then move up to your clinical line eraser. If you're going to start with clinical line eraser, finish the bottle, and then you can start to move up to your 1%. Okay? So in terms of the usage, you would use either of these products. Actually, bakuchiol you can use every single day if you want, but the clinical line eraser for beginners, I would recommend starting with 2 to 3 times a week. And again, if there's no adverse reaction after finishing the bottle, then you can begin moving up to 1%. But it's really important to note that you would not adapt the exact same regimen. You would start the process again, right? With the slow, starting once a week, and then you would work your way up. And of course, you're going to finish your regimen with your face, eye, lip, and body. All right, so that is the beginner. Very, very straightforward. It's really exciting because we have a couple of great options of retinol products. But now I want to talk about the intermediate user. So this is the individual that has tried retinol before. Or maybe you're actively using the clinical line eraser. Maybe that's the one that you've been using, for a long time. But if you've tried it, this is probably going to be something for you. So you may have tried either one of Avon's, maybe you've tried another brand from somewhere else, which is totally fine. But again, at the beginning, what I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to want you to fold. This is going to be an interesting one. I'm going to want you to fold the retinol into your routine. And what I mean by that is I want you to sandwich it with plenty of hydration. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm trying to avoid putting you into that immediate purge of mini peeling or flaking or any redness, any irritation. Because that could definitely be possible with our 1%. So let's take a look at this slide for the intermediate. The good news again is that when you add that hydration in, it's going to slow the process down. Don't worry, you're still going to get the results. But I always like to say, when I need to be presentable, never fear, always add in that hydration, right? Okay, so here is your evening routine. Again, because it's in the evening, you're going to start and you're going to cleanse. By the way, I just gave another option of a cleanser, LX New Clean. They have beautiful products. You can use, again, whatever cleansers you want for your first and your second cleanse. And for this one, you're going to see that there is an or on the screen. So you can either use a toner, the micellar water, which again is great for cleanup. It's also going to give you just a little bit of that light hydration. Or you could actually use a serum, a very hydrating serum first, which is the Hydrofusion 1.5% hyaluronic acid. That is an amazing super hydrator. So I'm giving you an option. So if you want to go with a little bit of hydration before, use the micellar water. If you want to go with quite a bit, then use your 1.5 hyaluronic acid. After that, that's when you follow with your 1%. Now with your 1%, back to the usage instructions, that pea-sized amount is very important. Now, I know, because I've been asked this before, some people are like, pea-sized amount? That won't even cover my forehead. What are you talking about? So what I always do is I take the pea-sized amount, I put it in my fingers, and then what I do is I tap, and I tap it all over my face, my neck. So it's just little amounts. You do not need a lot of this. Trust me, because I have done it. If you use more, and maybe that's what you want to do, but you definitely are encouraging the purge or, the potential side effects to come on a little bit quicker. So this is, again, I'm stair-stepping you into a routine so that it would be very gentle. So use your 1% retinol, and then I want you to finish with the moisturizer of your choice. I gave a couple of options here. I love, again, because I'm looking at real, like that deep hydration, Hydrofusion. I just cannot say enough about this brand. It's one of our classic brands. It's here for a reason. It has proven results, and this Hydrofusion nighttime treatment, it is a beautiful product. So it's going to sandwich in all of that hydration. You may also, Green Goddess is currently only available in the US. So if you're here in the US, you may reach for the Green Goddess oil. And that is a really incredible product because with the Green Goddess, you're actually applying that, and it's actually an occlusive product, and it's locking everything in. By the way, one little tip is that you can also lessen the impact a little bit more if you decide you want to mix your retinol with your moisturizer. You can absolutely do that. So that would be just, taking out the little bit of moisturizer that you're going to use, take the pea-sized amount, put it in the moisture, and you literally are going to mix it up, and then you can apply it, okay? So that is your intermediate skincare routine. Again, all the products are open to interpretation, but the important thing here is sandwiching in the hydration, right? And of course, just like with the other routines, you're going to finish with your eyes, lips, body, all of that goodness. Okay. So one last note for intermediate, and that is if you feel like your skin is adjusting pretty well, you can always experiment by removing one of the layers of hydration. The place I would probably start by removing the layer of hydration is in front of. So if you want to remove that micellar water or you want to remove the hyaluronic acid, you definitely can. Okay, let's talk about the advanced user. This is the individual that has been using retinol prescription over the counter, very, very probably higher percentages on a regular basis for a long time. This is for the individual that you've been using it, you want those desired effects, you know probably what comes behind that, but you're willing to pay the price. Or if you've been using it a long time, most certainly your skin is already adjusted. Now, if you haven't been using it a long time and you've been an intermediate user, there is an opportunity for you to step up and listen. If you're willing to bring on the purge and bring it on quick, then that's great. Some people, and by the way, I have to give a disclaimer, I do not recommend this, but there are some people that are super hardcore with their retinol. It's literally like being on Survivor because they will cleanse their face and use nothing else but retinol. I'm like, I've tried that a couple of times, and I'm here to tell you, I'm like, okay, no, I've got to have my hydration. I know that has beautiful results, but I'm not here for that. Okay, so let's look at that advanced skincare routine. So I would be considered an advanced user. So we're going to use just an example of my evening regimen as an example. So on nights that I am using 1% retinol, I'm going to use my cleanser, and then I'm actually going to use either Pineapple Plus, that's a brightening. So because I've been using it, I know what it's going to do to my skin, or I'll just dampen my skin with a face mist. I happen to be using Glow Color. And then I use my 1% retinol, pea-sized amount, even for me as an advanced user. And then it really depends. Sometimes, like I said, I will omit a moisturizer if I kind of want to go a little bit heavier. I admitted that about a month and a half ago, and let me tell you, even with our 1%, the peel was real. Now, it was, when I say peel, I don't mean like big, my face wasn't, red. It wasn't, I wasn't presentable, but it was just peeling around the edges on my nose. But I definitely was excited because I was like, oh my gosh, like this is actually working, right? So it's really exciting for me, at least, when I'm like, okay, that's actually showing me the results. But on a regular basis, I typically will reach for either a bakuchiol. I love pairing things with bakuchiol if I want that hydration, or my Green Goddess oil. And then, of course, I finish the rest of my routine. Okay, so really quickly before we jump into questions, while we're not talking about skin types today, I do want to address sensitive skin. For many, many years, if you had sensitive skin, there really was not a great option for you to use retinol. And I know a lot of people felt left out and they're like, gosh, like, why can't I use that? Retinol is very strong, whether it's prescription, whether it's over the counter. So welcome into the picture, bakuchiol. Now, if you've never heard of bakuchiol before today, don't feel alone because bakuchiol, it's a plant-based alternative to retinol. It does not have the typical side effects. And while bakuchiol was developed in like the late 60s or 70s, it was not used topically for the first time until 2007. And then the first study with retinol did not happen until 2014. And then fast forward, 2019 is when it finally started to get press. So 2019 to 2024, that's not a lot of time. So this is pretty still, it's even though it was developed many, many years ago, in terms of being used as an alternative to retinol, it's still a relatively new ingredient, but we know that it is great because it's a gentle alternative, and it really does help to show, to reduce those signs of aging, fine lines, wrinkles, hyperpigmentation, and of course, the results are really beautiful, but again, without what would typically happen if you're using a retinol. And again, we have that PharmaRx collection, so check it out. Okay, I've saved 20 minutes. I know that is a little chunk of time, but I've saved 20 minutes because I want to answer all of the questions. There are some commonly asked questions, so I'm going to invite my friend Sue to come on and join me. Hi, Sue.
Hi, hello.
How are you?
I'm great. Lots and lots of questions have been coming into the chat. Let me stop sharing here so we
Okay.
can be side by side. And we've got some common questions, and then I've got some questions from the chat. So
Okay.
let me go into some of those frequently asked questions.
All right, sounds good.
First one, Jeannine, would you say that retinol is safe for everyone to use?
Well, that's a great question, but almost all skin types can tolerate retinol, but like I just mentioned, sensitive skin, I mean, just steer clear. You're going to want to use that bakuchiol. So that actually kind of leads me to another thing, Sue, that I want to talk about. Other than just sensitive skin, let's talk about who should not use retinol. So obviously, sensitive skin, you want to be extra cautious because you have delicate skin. But even if you don't have sensitive skin, there are times when you want to avoid retinol. So you want to avoid retinol if you have over exfoliated your skin from either at home or in office treatments. I mean, I think we've all been guilty of doing that. Maybe you've been out in the sun and it happens to everybody. You got a little bit too much sun. Just pull back on that. Obviously, women that are pregnant, nursing. So those are some, reasons that I would say kind of steer clear. And again, I would recommend if you want, you can always reach for our bakuchiol collection.
Okay, great. When would you start using retinol?
Ooh, okay. So it's been recommended that people start using retinol as early as in their 20s, definitely by your 30s, because that is when the collagen levels, and this is not me, this is not my opinion, this is science. The collagen levels in your body start decreasing more rapidly. So you want to get in there. Remember that retinol, it's going to dive down and it's going to start fighting and it's going to neutralize and help stimulate that collagen. But a lot of dermatologists will also recommend, I mentioned this earlier, if someone is in their teens and they're having some trouble, troubled skin, obviously always talk to your dermatologist, but retinol could be a really great option as well because it really exfoliates, cleans out those pores, and smooths the skin.
Okay, well, what if someone started using it and they don't
Okay.
have sensitive skin, but their skin started reacting? Why would that happen?
Okay, so, and I kind of touched on this, but this is actually a really good question. So it's really great for your skin, and we've talked kind of about the purge or having those side effects, and that can happen when either you have never used it, you just go right for it, you've increased your retinol dosage. That's why I gave regimens to kind of sandwich in hydration to start slow. But again, it's because whether it's, breakouts or redness, flakes, it's because that retinol is in there and it's doing its job. It's turning everything over. So if you can stick with it, I promise the payoff is worth it. And you're going to have beautiful, refreshed skin. But of course, I have to say, you know your skin better than anyone, and you know if something isn't right. And if it's not right, you need to stop. Okay.
What if it's been a few weeks and your skin is still kind of angry?
Okay, so that could be for a few different reasons. Maybe you're using it too often. We talked about that. Maybe you're using too much. I talked about that. Stick to the pea-sized amount. Maybe you're using it in the morning. No, no, no. That's a big no-no, except for bakuchiol. Or maybe you're also mixing it with other active ingredients like alpha hydroxy acid, vitamin C. So if you're using like the peel pads, for example, and you're doing that on the same day as the retinol, you're not giving your skin a chance to actually, catch up, right? And just let that retinol do its work. And there are products you can use on your days off. But I would say if your skin's angry, just pull back a little bit. That's a great question.
Is there anything that you could do to kind of fix it, to alleviate that?
Yes, I would say pull back on your retinol application. Also, if your skin is just really irritated and you're having some, just serious challenges, pull back on those other skincare products that may have active ingredients. Again, your vitamin C's, glycolic acid, alpha hydroxys. The only thing that you should not stop using that has an active is SPF. And I would also say, even change your skincare routine a little bit. Use a really gentle cleanser, really gentle moisturizer. I'm seeing Joanna in the comments is saying that she uses, our green goddess oil, to really help. And that is, again, it's only available here in the US right now, but that is a really great option to kind of, calm kind of that redness and that any irritation you're experiencing.
How long does it take for retinol to start to work?
Okay, so retinol, as soon as it's applied, it immediately goes down into your cells and it starts to work immediately. But it's going to take several weeks, just like with anything that you're doing in life, right? I mean, how many things are immediate with any other skincare product? So it could take several weeks before you see an improvement in the look and feel of your skin. But again, really try and stick with it. These are good questions.
Yeah, and now here's some other questions that I was watching the chat and kind of summarizing them because some people
Okay.
ask kind of the same way. But um, how about, can we use bakuchiol and retinol together?
Yes, you can. I love it. I love retinol and bakuchiol. You saw that I have that in my routine. I think I even had that in the intermediate routine. Yes, you can. Research really shows that they work really great together. And the reason is because bakuchiol is very calm. It's stabilizing, it has beautiful properties, but it's letting the retinol do its work together. And it really also helps to increase kind of your skin's tolerance. So I like kind of hitting it from both sides. I'll keep my retinol obviously in the evening, and I will either pair it up in the evening or I will follow in the morning with my bakuchiol serum. That's one of my favorites. I always use that one during the daytime for sure.
Would you use bakuchiol or the retinol first if you're going to use them together?
Oh, that's a really good. So I would, if it's in the evening, which it should be with your retinol, I'm going to use, if I'm using the cream, I would use the retinol first, and then I would follow with my cream and then my eye cream. And if it's the serum, then if I want kind of that added kind of buffer again between it, I might start with the serum and follow with the retinol. But I might flip it if I'm like, okay, I'm ready to step it up. I'm going to step it up and start with my retinol and follow with the serum. Does that make sense? I know that was quite a few options, Sue.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, depending on what your
Yeah.
level is. So, how about using retinol in the eye area? I've seen
Oh
that.
my goodness. Sue, did you really ask that? No, but that's a great question. No, stay off of TikTok, everybody, for skincare advice. There are crazy stories. I bet you all have seen some really crazy things out there on social media where people are using types of ingredients, they're doing things, you know, play it safe. Unless the product is formulated for your eye area, then just be safe and avoid it. However, there are retinol products that are designed for the eye area, right? So that those could be used, our bakuchiol eye cream. And I'm seeing Jessica asking kind of a piggyback question. Applying retinol on the side of your eyes like crow's feet. I would really, Jessica, stick to that I would let the bakuchiol eye cream do its job, because remember, it's going to give you those really great results, but it's also giving you that very important hydration that is designed for your eyes. Okay. And I know, Jessica, we did have, there was a targeted kind of line treatment. Even with that one, I would say use it, on these are kind of like your 11s, your smile lines. Even me personally, as much as I go crazy on skincare, and y'all know I try it all, I wouldn't even put that one around my eyes. Retinol around the lips, proceed with caution. Teresa, send me pictures when you do this, Teresa. No, you can't. I mean, just again, I would mix it with moisturizer. I would not put it on my lips, but again, if you kind of want to hit the fine lines and wrinkles around, then yeah, absolutely. But just go slow with that one for sure. Great questions.
Jeannine, what products would we avoid if we're going to be using retinol?
Okay, so, and I think I've kind of covered this a little bit, but if you're new to retinol, personally, just set aside your other active products for a while, your vitamin C's, your alpha hydroxy acids. My goodness, if anybody out there is using our Revitalize and Reveal Intensive Peel, which is one of my favorite products, please set that aside. Even me, again, I use all of these products, but even myself, sometimes I layer them up a little bit too close. And even Sue just saw me a couple of days ago. I had a little place on my cheek and they were like, oh, you went a little heavy again. So yeah. I'm also just seeing a question, Sue, from Joanna about hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is a super hydrator. So when I say active ingredients, I should clarify, thank you, Joanna, anything that has an acid, like a vitamin C, an alpha hydroxy acid, a glycolic acid. Hyaluronic acid is not an acid in terms of turning over your skin. That is actually has molecules that are going down into your skin, and it's actually super hydrating. So I know it may sound a little counterintuitive with the acid on it, but you're safe with your hyaluronic acid.
That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good.
I think I have just one last question, and I
Okay.
don't think you've covered this, but on your day off from retinol, what products would you recommend? Maybe some other anti-aging products, or
Mhm.
what would you suggest?
So again, it depends on your journey. Again, if you're new, just set some of those other actives aside for a second. But for me in particular, I definitely would say a great product to use on a night off is our Ultimate Night. The night cream has glycolic acid, and it's a very light. It's a formulation that works, but it's light, and that is a great thing to kind of keep those results going. I also am a big fan of platinum, whether that's the original platinum, LX New Platinum. I love all of those products because those have peptides and they're non-irritating. Another one, speaking of peptides, oh my goodness, our clinical collagen line, whether it's the ampules, whether it's the cream. I cannot get enough of that cream. That cream is something I probably reach for literally on the daily, unless I'm kind of, stepping it up with the retinol. Stephanie, I do see, is asking about a question. The best product for deep wrinkles. Honestly, Stephanie, I would, depending on where you are in your journey, I would definitely recommend trying the 1% retinol. It is one of the most, potent, one of the most powerful anti-aging skincare ingredients we have. But I do want to just really drive home again that this in particular is really a treatment. It is not a moisturizer. Um, I'm seeing a little bit, Sue, also just really quickly questions about the Dominus line. So that was a surprise and delight. I'm really excited to have this addition in the portfolio. Right now, it is limited time only, so try it while you can. It's really great. I actually just got my product and started using it. So the products are really beautiful. Again, because this class is about retinol, I do want to just stick to the retinol product. But this particular retinol, again, it has niacinamide, it has vitamin C. So I really look at this as a beautiful complex of doing kind of all of the things. It has a lighter formulation of retinol than our 1%. But that's cool because it means it's still going to work, right? But you've got your retinol and your vitamin C and your niacinamide. So you're getting that turnover, the brightening. It's really beautiful. And just one more kind of reminder, Sue, for everyone in terms of the order of the strength for our retinols that we currently offer at Avon. That would be number one is your clinical line eraser, 1%, the 1% retinol. The next one would be our clinical line eraser. I think I said that incorrectly. Let me go back. So this is our new clinical, I did say it correctly, line eraser 1%. So 1% is the strongest. The next one is going to be our new clinical line eraser retinol treatment. So this one would be next. And then next in terms of formulation would be the Dominus. And this is a beautiful retinol youth rejuvenating serum. And again, this one has a lower percentage of retinol, but it also has the addition of vitamin C as well as niacinamide. And then of course, over in its own kind of, area, we have bakuchiol. All of those products are really beautiful. Okay, so I hope that helped. Sue, did you see any other questions? Again, thank you all so much for joining. If you have questions, please make sure this replay, Sue, is going to be on YouTube. So head over to YouTube. I think it'll be there by Monday and drop your questions in. I will be monitoring that. But thank you so much for joining us. As always, such a great time. I hope you learned a lot today with our Retinol 101 Masterclass. I hope you, discovered a product or two, or even maybe a new way to try a combination. But regardless, I always want you to keep your skin happy, healthy, use your skincare, and I cannot wait to see all of you soon. Sue, thank you so much for moderating. And we also thank you to our translators today, Rhea for French and Haruyo for Spanish. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you all very soon.